everyone.
Hey everyone.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Footy Talks.
Footy Talks.
Footy Talks, presented by Powerade. We are live with your Thursday footy fix. And welcome along to the show, Footy Talks, presented by Powerade. Great to be with you as always. Luke and KJ and Jonathan Osorio, Toronto FC midfielder, will be joining us in about 15 minutes time at the end of a momentous week for the club. We'll get you set for the rest of the MLS Cup playoffs as well, and lots more footy talk over the course of the next hour. No Caldwell today.
No.
It's like the Where's Waldo game, but we're looking for Toronto FC's best ever number 13 or second best number 13, depending who you ask.
Yeah, Patrick Moyes has scored some good goals. So
a man with more appointments, Caldwell, than the Prime Minister. He's pretty booked up.
He's an important lad, let's be honest.
Very, very important man.
Yeah, very important man who, let's be honest, broadcasting has always just been the thing he kind of does. For us, it's our job.
When he's got nothing better to do.
That's what it is. Yeah,
he broadcasts.
This guy's got, a business appointments and presidents of clubs and all the stuff to do. So we understand that when he can fit us in, he'll be back.
Absolutely. In fact, the last time he had an appointment, you'll remember it was the day after Scotland qualified for the Euros. So he actually gave us 20 minutes of his precious time just to talk about Scotland before he had to disappear. But there will be no Caldwell sightings today, unfortunately. But KJ, it doesn't really matter in terms of the amount of stuff that we've got to talk about this week. With Toronto FC on the lookout for a new head coach for the first time since the middle of 2014. Before we get to all of that, and before we get to were you surprised when all of this happened, I think what we should first off do is talk about Greg Vanney and the 6.5 years he had in charge of the club. The 5 full seasons, making it to the playoffs 4 times, to 3 MLS Cups, the Champions League final, the Eastern Conference Championships. What he was able to do, in your opinion, at a club that at that moment in time, not for the first time when he arrived as the head coach, was in a little bit of a mess and a bit of turmoil and needing direction, stability, structure. And here we are. I mean, if you'd have said after the first 8 years of this club that the next head coach in September of 2014 would be not leaving until 2020, I don't think many people would have taken you up on that.
No, nobody in the right mind would have said that, would they? First of all, good afternoon to you, Luke, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever everybody is around the world. Let us know. It's a pleasure, as always, to join you on our Thursday footy fix, as Luke says, and lots of questions to get into today. So please ask away and what you think you want to do with this club. It's a unique situation. Here we are with this club on a global search as a big club for the first time, as a global search for a new boss. Really, the first time they've done that. And I was thinking a little bit, Luke, about that in terms of this week where we talked about, going back to the day that Greg was hired. I think you and Jason you can change this, but I think you're flying back from Vancouver that day. So you weren't there. I went to the training ground when it was announced that there was another change of coach and another change and I remember going, oh, here we go again. I think, it's another coach. And I'd written already about how TFC were, the best in MLS, the champions at holding press conferences for changing managers. And here we go, a revolving door. And Greg Vanney shared a story, didn't he, on his press conference when he came out the first match and someone shouts behind him, I hope you're renting, Vanney, because it was just a complete continuation of a mess of a club, and really night and day from everything that we know what this club's about now. There are fans joining us today, fans that were in the stands then that could only have dreamed of what that club became during the Greg Vanney era, a club that was doing so many things wrong, and a fan base that was clamoring for just a glimpse of success. Just give us a chance to have a couple of nights or big moments. And then those moments came, and more moments came, and trophies came, and bigger moments came. And then they took them on a CONCACAF journey that almost got to the final destination so narrowly close. So it's been a whirlwind of a time, but one that obviously Greg Vanney will always be known as the first one to really change that direction of the football club, and that's so vital.
You talked about all of the coaches that there have been. And if you look back, I was just looking for the complete list so I didn't miss anyone. But of course, they started with Mo Johnston. Then it was John Carver who got brought in from England. Chris Cummins had come in with him and then took over when John Carver left. Then they went out and hired Preki, which didn't work. Then Nick Dasovic, who was already at the club, steps in. Aaron Vinter gets hired in 2011. Then Paul Mariner, who was already at the club with Aaron Vinter. Then Ryan Nelson comes in, who at the time when he was hired was actually still playing for Queen's Park Rangers. And then after that, it was Greg Vanney. So it was quite a whirlwind over the course of those 8-9 years. But it also went to show you, KJ, if you get these decisions wrong, you could be on that revolving door again. So this is a crucial period now for TFC, because what Greg Vanney achieved in the 6 years that he was there, which was an awful lot, doesn't really mean you're going to get the next bit right. If the hire isn't the right person, it makes it easier because of the structure that's there and the reputation the club has and all of the good things that have been put into place. But it doesn't guarantee that whoever comes in, like we saw in Atlanta, even a much shorter timescale, of course, but they went from Tata Martino to Frank de Boer, and now look where they are. You've got to get the hire right.
You do, Luke. It's a great point you make. There's a lot of different things that have happened around the world of football recently as well, where you take a club who've had a lot of continuity, and not to the stature of TFC with 6, but you think of Wenger and you think of Ferguson and you think about what followed them and what a disaster it was after that. They can't get this wrong, because this is a crucial time for this franchise where there's a lot of seniority within the playing ranks and time to try and bring in youth as well and transition and continue the sustained success. It isn't about knocking it down and rebuilding it again. It's continuing to try and build forward and go forward, because that's what they want. Jeffrey, yes, it is going to be okay. You're fine.
But is it? But is it really?
It is going to be okay. There's a lot of things for you to still be happy about. But I think to your point, Luke, in many ways, that's what makes this decision even more important than that day. I think it was September 1st, 2014, because then to take that franchise from where it was now to the next level was a glimmer of hope, and to take it from really the lowest of the lows. I mean, obviously now Nelson had brought it up a little bit from the Koevermans era, but now to go from there to another level is even harder. And look, the prospects are there that you can achieve so much more. It is so exciting for the next person to come in to work with this group, but it is a challenge, and I do think that's why we heard from Ali Curtis and Bill Manning this week that it's going to be a thorough search, because they have to take the time. You mentioned what a disaster Preki was. It's the only time in the history of this club that they actually took more than 2 weeks to find a manager, and they found him. So they need to take their time. Everybody else has been out and in on the same day, out the door, back door, come in the front door on the same day. I think it's a time for a methodical approach and a clear identity about who they need to get the right guy.
And remember the global search
yes,
that ended up with Jurgen Klinsmann involved and then Aaron Vinter coming in, and you can put all of that work into trying to get the right person, and it can still be a disaster. So it is very important that that TFC go the right direction here. Before Jonathan Osorio joins us, though, it was really interesting listening to Greg Vanney, who I have to say, over the course of the last, over the course of the last 2 decades, I've dealt with a lot of managers, both in England, in Europe, and in North America as well. I don't think there have been any who have been so gracious with their time in terms of always being available for what we needed in media requests, broadcast. Whatever it was, whether it was within the broadcast or outside the broadcast, talking to us on a game day ahead of time, giving us information about the lineups, what was going to. He was quite open in that way, and it was something that I think he did very well in terms of, and he talked about this as well in the press conference on Monday. The relationships that he has built with the players, with the staff. He's very, very much a relationship man, KJ, in terms of what he was able to achieve. And how he went about doing it with that group of players. And that's why he got so emotional when he was talking about it at the weekend, with those connections that he's built with those players.
Yeah, connection's the word. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he was our friend, because we had a professional
working relationship. Correct. And it should be.
It should be, yeah. But we had a tremendous respect for that, and so did he. And as you mentioned, we would have production meetings before every match where we talked about different things with him, and he would share quite a lot of things with him. I worked out, I probably did over 150 interviews with him, in game match environments, pre-match, post-match, all the different things, maybe even close to 200. And, some of them were not easy for him. Some of them were not easy for me, but there was always a respect there. And I've spoke about this before, not just to make it about me, but I'm stepping into their intense environment, asking for key words that are going out, and he's got to think about those words. Greg, by nature, is a very intelligent and articulate gentleman, I think. But I think that helped him in developing those relationships. There's a care factor there. And probably the best compliment I can give of him is that talking to some of the players, and we'll be joined by Jonathan Osorio shortly, but, a lot of them were really cared about Greg Vanney as the man. And that's not easy to develop in an intense sporting environment there, where you've got to evaluate those players, make hard decisions, talk to them about getting better, challenge those players. And there's a lot of players, certainly some of them that I've reached out to this week that, stuck around because of Greg or signed for the club because of Greg. And I think that will make the next global search for the manager mean that, as I said to you this week on SportsCenter, that the very first thing they have to do, the due diligence, is to make sure they hire a good person. Obviously, the other stuff on how we are on the grass, the leadership qualities is vital, but a good, loyal person who embraces the club, knows the club environment, has a presence about them in the city. I think they're all things that are, for me, imperative in the next hire.
We are taking your questions, and we'll get to them a little later on in the show. Something that I think has been talked about a lot is the fact that there are jobs open within Major League Soccer right now. Toronto, Atlanta, some LA Galaxy, some big jobs. I would be shocked, and Greg Vanney said he doesn't sit still for long. He said that in his press conference. I would be shocked if he is not on the touchline for opening game next season. And I'd be shocked if it's not for LA Galaxy. Would you?
I would be, yeah. As I said to you this week, I'd heard Atlanta had some interest, and why wouldn't they, if they have a chance like that? But yeah, I'm with you. I think, for me, you could see the emotions in him, that this was a very difficult decision for him and his family. And I think when you break that down and you talk about how difficult emotionally it was, I don't think it was always about TFC or nothing. I think it was always about TFC or the next destination, which we're putting two and two together right now. We're adding 4 and we're going LA Galaxy. And I think that for me, it just makes too much sense. As I said already this week, it's a sleeping giant, 5 MLS Cups. I can't help but say that it wasn't lost on me that in his final press conference, he wore a TFC jacket with 1 star on it. And I thought, the next time I see you, I think you'll have 5. That's just the way. I'm not going to lie. That's what I thought when I saw him. And I think, for me, everything the LA Galaxy need to build that team. And he talked about being a builder and an ability to win big playoff games and to deal with big personalities and big players. And by the way, in a market where LAFC, and I know they haven't won anything yet, but LAFC are rampant right now. They are vibrant. They are relevant. They are coming hard and fast. And the next chess move in the history of that rivalry is enormous for the Galaxy. And I think that move will be to get Greg Vanney.
Well, we'll see what happens there over the next few weeks. Greg Vanney saying he's going to take some much needed time with his family. And he has been immersed in, and I said this in an interview I was doing on Sirius Radio the other day when they asked me about what he means to Toronto FC. There are so many managers who I've dealt with down the years who are people whose job it is to get the first team to win, and that's all they care about. Greg Vanney was a lot more than that for Toronto FC. He was, of course, by title, the technical director as well. But you could turn up at the facility when TFC's first team players weren't there, and it was academy kids out on the training pitch, and he'd be there as well, standing by the side of the pitch. Somebody who knew the club intimately, but not only knew it, wanted to improve it and put his fingerprints on it as well. And that's unique, but it also takes its toll in terms of, it's a 24/7 business anyway, even if you're just dealing with the first team. But the amount of time and energy that he invested into this club over the course of 6 years was incredible.
It certainly was. There's back to having a good heart. You care about that stuff. It's not just about you. And that's one of the big things I think that Greg Vanney changed the culture of Toronto FC, because for me, how do you get individuals in a team environment to think about the collective rather than themselves? That is an enormous part of leadership in team environments. And that's what he accomplished that other coaches at that club couldn't do. Because quite frankly, other coaches at that club couldn't get past themselves. If you don't walk it, how can they? If you don't show that you care about other people, how can they show it? And he did care about other people right from the top to the bottom. As you said, it would grind you down eventually. And there's an exhaustion factor there. But just the final point on that is this, is that even though I'm sure it wasn't easy for him in certain regards, where you are tested in patience and there are certain things at the club that will frustrate you, the people who worked under him often would tell me he never allowed them to see that. And that's another area of excellent leadership, is that you can look after them without showing them that things are maybe winding down a little bit with this relationship or getting to you there, but you don't allow that to affect and infiltrate everybody else with that kind of annoyance or negativity.
We'll be joined by Jonathan Osorio in just a few moments' time. You get your questions in a little bit later in the show. We will try and get to some of them as we look forward to what is next for Toronto FC, with Greg Vanney departing the club this week. You've spoken to Ali Curtis and Bill Manning as well. They said about the quote from Ali the other day was, on terms of a timeline, he said, now, that this business is about now. Do you think there's patience in terms of waiting for the right person, or do you think it's more important that they act quickly here?
I think they'll act quickly. I think that they understand that they've got to get it right and they'll take their time, but the process has begun. The process has begun. They're inundated with offers and agent calls and people calling and people throwing out their name and other people calling journalists and saying, put my name out there, you name it. It's all happening, Luke.
That doesn't happen, right? Does it?
It's all happening, right?
People with no chance of a job, but their agents telling journalists that they're...
Correct.
Yeah.
So, it's all happening and they understand the game and they're playing the game. And then, as I said, you've got to go through the noise and move your way through that and then eventually gain clarification. Yet, you need a breathing period, a 72-hour period that we're in the middle of, in my opinion, to get it all in and bring in all the information and then start going, okay, let's whittle this down to the people that we want to have a chat with. And then that might need a second chat and a third chat. And that's when you take the time. But I think if we think that right now with them in quarantine, they're just sitting around and playing video games with their kids and not bothering about this for a few weeks, I think we'd be naive.
As someone who might be sitting around in quarantine playing video games, I don't know, but we'll talk to him now. Toronto FC's leading ever appearance maker is Jonathan Osorio, the Canadian international midfielder, and we welcome him back to Footy Talks, presented by Powerade. Great to see you. How are you doing, Jonathan?
Hey, guys. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I hope you guys are good.
Yeah, you must be getting a bit of an expert at this quarantine thing now. Just Netflix shows, soccer games, catching up on TV. I don't know. What is it?
All of that. Yeah, a lot of Netflix, a lot of football. I mean, I'm so happy when football comes on because that helps a lot. And then the other I don't know, 8 hours of the day is tough, but no, it's okay. We're used to it. We're used to it now, and I'm just trying to get through it and enjoy my time at home now.
You deserve the rest, mate. But tell me, you said you're happy when football's going. You can't be happy with this week about Real Madrid. That can't be good.
Yeah, they're having trouble, aren't they? Second time losing to Shakhtar. Yeah, I guess it happens in the best of clubs. The clubs. Yeah. Every club goes through a bad moment, and at the big club, it's just a little bit more on the. There's just a little bit added more pressure to get out of that slump and as quickly as possible. It's football, It's everything I love about it.
Yeah.
Could be worse. You could support my Sheffield United and be looking at exiting the Premier League by Christmas. It's not good, especially when you've got a Villa fan on the other end of the line there right now and thinking his team's going to make it to the Champions League.
I never said that.
Listen, I think, when the news came out on Monday with regards to Greg Vanney leaving the club, it surprised a lot of people given the talk there had been about the fact that a contract might be getting close. With yourself and the players you've spoken to, when did you first hear about it, and did it catch you off guard, or was it something that as time had gone on, you'd been preparing for maybe as a scenario that might happen?
No, actually, I give a lot of credit to Greg. He really didn't let it become a distraction in the locker room. I towards the end of the season and going into playoffs, I actually had forgot that his contract was coming to an end. That's kind of the environment he made it seem like, at least for me. So yeah, I found out that morning. From Greg himself. He called me. He said he wanted me to find out from him himself rather than finding out from the media. So I guess my guess is that it's a decision that kind of went all the way to the last these last days, and kind of that's when he made his decision. I was surprised. I was surprised. I know how much Greg loves it here in Toronto. I know how much he cares about this club. And so, yeah, for me, it was a bit of surprise, but at the same time, I'm along with everybody that's worked with him. I think we're all very thankful for his time here, and I'm glad that he's doing what he thinks is right for himself and his family.
Also, we really appreciate you joining us today. You're always so gracious with your time. But I also think because you can bring such a unique perspective because of how long you've been at the club. You were there prior to Greg, and also what the club and what the city means for you. And if you can, I'd love for you to share with our listeners and viewers all over the world just what kind of impact Greg had on the club and that badge, that what it means now.
I think he's had the biggest impact, right? I mean, as far as coaches, for sure, he's the one that brought the supporter shield for the first time. He's the one that got us the MLS Cup and won it. He got us there another two times after that, another 2 times along with the one we won. He led us to a CONCACAF Champions League final. We were almost the first club in the modern era of to be an MLS team to win that tournament. I mean, so many things, so many accomplishments that Greg has led this team to, and he's engraved in the club forever. He's a legend in the club, and the fans and the players and the people that work with him will never forget about him. That's for sure. And his legacy is going to live on forever in this club. That's for sure.
Turning the ship around when he came in mid 2014 to what has been achieved, as you just said there, all the different things that he's won. That's one thing. You can see those trophies. People from outside, supporters who see the team, might not realize everything else that went into building this club. That at times, the revolving door has been spoken about a lot up until mid 2014. Take us behind the scenes a little bit. What is it that he was so successful at doing that has enabled this club now to have a structure and be a winner moving forward?
Well, that's exactly it. That's exactly what he brought from the get-go of when he stepped in. Was he actually brought now a structure to the club, which the club had not had up till then. We finally found our identity. And I guess I should have been answering this. This is kind of what Kristian probably was alluding to with his question. But he brought structure. He brought a winning mentality. The amount of work that he puts in to every game is and the amount of analytics that he puts and thought is beyond anything I've seen. I have not worked with a lot of coaches, but from my teammates and who have worked with a lot of coaches, they say the same thing. So this is not just me saying this. It's someone who really cared about the club. And I think that's what I admired most about Greg, is not only does he have such a passion for football and for coaching and for the game, but and he did not only did he have a willingness to put in all this work, he enjoyed it, and he cared about the club. And that kind of was contagious to the rest of the team. As a coach, you go through your ups and downs, but I think it was mostly not mostly, it was a very successful stint at the club, and a long stint, and again, he'll be remembered forever.
Before you came on, also, I was just talking about how coaches need to get players to buy into the collective, about how it's all about the club and not just about their individuals. I certainly don't mean this as a criticism, but it's a lot of players are wired selfishly about what can they do for me, and that drives players to get to the point where you've accomplished something as a professional elite athlete, something that millions of other people would love to do. It's that inner drive that you guys have that some of us would never have. But what was it that Greg was able to do? And would you agree that that was a strength that was able to get everybody from your Javinkos to your reserve players that were buying into that club and what was best for the team, not just what was best for the individual?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, as players, everybody has a vision and a dream of what they would like their career to look like. And in that sense, I think, that's why players can be sometimes selfish at times. But in that sense, just to want to be successful, to reach their goals. I think Greg did a great job because he did exactly what you said. He got everybody to buy into his philosophy, into his way of playing, into his way of thinking. In every game, winning the trust of these big players coming in who have played for tons of great managers, and you could see all over social media they all tipping their cap to this coach, which is his first coaching job. I think that's amazing. And the one thing about Greg that is really, really, really a great trait is that he wants to make every player on his team a better player. He wants to make an impact to every player. And that is actually almost impossible to do. It's almost to impact every player on the team in a good way. But Greg wanted to do that. Greg strived to do that. And at times it was hard because you can't make every player happy. Only 11 players can play. You're not going to make every player happy. But Greg tried his best every day to try and keep everybody happy and show that he is trying to make you a better player. And at the end of the day, you have to give much respect to him for that.
And probably fair to say, Jonathan, that your own career is to where you've got to right now. A lot of it is because of that investment that Greg Vanney would have put into you over the last 6 years.
Exactly. I've told him a few times now, but he knows the impact that he's made in my career. I mean, he's been my coach for most of my career. I had Nelson for a year and a little bit, but Greg has been there for most of my career, and my development, I would say, is a lot in part to him. And I'm just so thankful. I think he believed in me from when he came in. I remember the first time he chatted to me. He had a chat with me. He chatted about. He was telling me how we have the same philosophy of the game, the same vision of the game, and that he really rated me as a player. And this was me a very young. This was a 22 year old, and he believed in me. He believed in me from the beginning. And although the journey wasn't all smooth, it was ups and downs for me, but that's football. This as a player, you go through that, and Greg helped me through that. And I have I always me and Greg will keep in contact, for life, and I'm very thankful for what he has done in my career.
Yeah, you can never take that away from the two of you. Moving forward, how excited are you to take whatever the next journey is with a new leader, with a different voice? I know that you've become a different player now to the last time the coach inherited you. You're an enormous part of this club. I thought you were magnificent again this season, and they really missed you when you weren't able to get on the field. You're a massive pillar of leadership on and off the pitch now. How excited are you to grow again and work on that with whoever comes in?
Well, thanks, KJ, for the words. I appreciate that. And for your question, I'm very excited. I'm excited for sure. It's going to be a new challenge for the club and a new era. and more than anything, a new challenge. And I think as a competitor, this is what you get into sport for new things, for new challenges. Now, a new manager coming in, I don't know who that will be, but whoever that will be, we'll have to, keep this club to where it's at and keep moving it forward. And I think as players, we are excited to work with whoever comes in to do that. And it won't be it's not an easy task, but I think it's with the players that we have here, it's a task that I think everybody is looking forward to. And so, it's going to be exciting, something different. I haven't had a coaching change in my career. I've had it once, and it happened a long time ago. So, it'll be interesting to see how this time around, how it goes.
And will you be one of these that's on the internet all the time, refreshing Twitter just to see if there's any news about who it might be, or
don't do that, mate?
You're just going to keep out of it until somebody calls you and says this is the new boss?
I'll probably keep out of it. I think as a player, you have to trust that the front office is going to make the right decision. And I think for me is I got to focus on getting better myself first. I got to get ready for the team and keep myself going this offseason. But at the same time, I will be definitely on the lookout to see when the hiring will happen. But I won't be refreshing my social media anytime soon.
No, you don't want to do that. Before I let you go, also one thing, talking about getting emails today. I don't know if you heard, but the Canadian Player of the Year was announced. You got robbed, by the way. I don't know who beat that. Some guy called Alphonso Davies. I don't know how you didn't get this award, but I'm just like, no, I jest, of course. But Alphonso wins the award. You were narrowly right behind it. I'm sure some kid called David from Ottawa was involved in the voting as well. But your reaction to your Canadian teammate Alphonso Davies picking up yet more silverware, as if he needs any more for this year.
Yeah, I think it's the clear decision. I have to say, he won the Champions League, and I think when you win the Champions League, even as a Canadian, or as I think from any nationality, you put yourself in a pretty good position to win your national team's Player of the Year. No, Alfonso, I always say this: he deserves everything that comes to him. Such a good kid, a charismatic kid. Works hard, wants to get better, is in you can argue the best environment of football that you could even be in around the world. And he won a Champions League, and I said it I think right before the game, actually, with you and Stevie, with you guys, that if he wins the Champions League, it's like it feels like I win it, and because I'm cheering for him so much. And so that was a great moment for not only Alfonso, but for the whole nation, and that's what this kid is doing. And so and he's only a kid, and it's scary, and he's gonna, once he grows into a man, I'm excited to see that. I hope I can get a glimpse of that in my career. And amazing. And for all the guys on this list as well, it's not an easy award to win anymore. This is a tough award to win. You have good competition, and this is what excites me about the sport here in Canada. Is so many guys could win that award and with top quality. But I got to say, Alfonso definitely deserves it.
Before we let you go, I know you're one of these guys who loves to watch whatever game is going, whatever game is available. You just love football and watching it. But now you're out of the playoffs. Do you stay clear of MLS Cup playoffs, or do you actually still watch the games as they're going on?
It hurts. It hurts, but I watch. It hurts, but I do watch. You have to appreciate the teams that are still. And respect the teams that are still fighting. I watched the Seattle game the other day, and you got to tip your cap to that club and to that team to always find a way to win games. I have much respect for them. it kills me, but I have much respect. I do have much respect, and yeah, I'm always, like you said, any football game that's on, I'm gonna watch. I watched a great game yesterday in Boca Juniors and Internacional of Porto Alegre, Copa Libertadores, and that was great. It's a shame, of course, with the times that we're in, there's no fans, because those atmospheres are incredible and I love them. But hopefully in the near future that maybe changes, maybe not. But as long as football is on the TV, I will be watching.
That Orlando New York City penalty shootout was something, eh?
That was something. I'm not going to comment much on it, but that was something.
I said finally, but there was one more thing I wanted to ask you, because we were talking last week. We haven't had the chance to do a show since Diego Maradona died, and you were 5 years old. I looked up when he retired from playing. We grew up, me and KJ, a completely different era, watching Maradona, the '86 World Cup, the Hand of God, all that sort of thing. As someone who loves the game but didn't actually live in that era when he was at his peak in terms of playing, did you still, as a kid growing up, watch what he could do on YouTube? Does he still mean something to you in terms of what he was able to achieve and the quality that he had in the game?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So just like you guys, my dad's a little bit older, but he's also my father's generation. He's my father's generational player. So when I was around 5, young kid, my dad would speak about Maradona and just tell me how amazing and incredible this player was, and I would go on YouTube or to see whatever clips of him and the things that he does, and even at a young age I was understanding. I was searching everything from his group stage games in that World Cup to everything. Maradona, if you love football, he means everything to you. And when I heard the news, it's crazy. I don't have a relation to him, but he meant a lot. He meant a lot for football, and anybody who loves football, that's a huge loss. But you're just so grateful of what he brought to the game, even with the amount of off-field things that happened in his life. He was able to always perform on the pitch. It's amazing. You watch the documentary. If you watch the documentary, you appreciate him even more. I have one story of Maradona. I actually, here in Toronto, he had a nephew that lived here. So Maradona actually visited Canada a lot, and this was in the I remember I had practiced with I forget the club. I think it was Weston Wolves Club there in the Jane and Weston area. And I was playing with Maradona's nephew, playing on the same team as me. And there was one practice Maradona came to watch, and my father saw him. My father was in shock of this figure in front of him that he admires. That he was even he's just so big that it kind of makes you shy to even approach him for a photo or for something. It's just he has that aura about him. But my dad always tells me that story, how he wishes he got that photo or something at least, but he didn't want to bother him. That was a part of a time in his life. He was bigger than anything, and I have that one story, and I just that I think is amazing.
That's incredible. And through all the sadness of what happened with him last week, it was great just to see everybody remembering what he meant to them, what he meant to the game in their country, all the different memories and things that were happening around the world, the streets of Naples, things like that. It was incredible to see. It really was, and the legacy that will live on. Also, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. We'll let you get back to quarantine and whichever Netflix show you've got coming up next. Hey, have a great off season. I'm sure the TFC fans would also like to say that they appreciate everything that you and the rest of the players did in terms of the sacrifices made by being away for so long this year, in a very difficult season and a difficult year for everybody.
100%.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It was tough, but for the fans, I think we fight for them every day, and so it was as tough as it was easy to get on the pitch and fight for the crest. So no, thank you to the fans. Thank you to you guys for having me on. And don't believe anything. Don't believe everything you see on Twitter, especially from Justin Morrow.
Thanks, Oso.
Thanks,
Jonathan Osorio with us on Footy Talks Live, presented by Powerade. Just like Jonathan was talking about there, I've shown my son, you know, Hudson's 9. You've got Evan, who's a little bit older as well. But to be able to go through and see him last week, looking at all the clips again that he's seen before, but just to truly appreciate, like the goal, the goal of the century in the '86 World Cup at the Azteca, which you got the chance to go to when TFC were playing there in the Champions League as well. It's almost a responsibility you feel that you've got to pass that down to the next generation. And as also said there, if you love the game, you know what Diego Maradona meant. It doesn't matter if you were born when he was playing or if you were born when Oso was, or even 5 years ago. Yeah,
no question. You know, it was a day that we'll never forget for me for a number of reasons. You know, it broke in the morning. I do a Champions League show in an afternoon, a Champions League live show on Sirius for 3 hours when the games are going in, and it was a Champions League day. And those days and those shows are very busy for us. And the goals go in, we react, we go to the ground, we play the commentary. But it was a day about Maradona. And we took a lot of calls, and people just wanted to talk about him, just like us, Oso, just like you with your son and Hudson. And people just wanted to say what the memories were of him, you know. And I've watched so many Maradona games in the past. I never got to see him play live. I was once in the same stadium. I haven't told this story, so I'll tell you now. I was at the 2006 World Cup with Jenny. We went as fans, and we were watching Argentina against Serbia Montenegro in the stadium at Schalke Stadium, and we got tickets 5 rows from the front with the Argentina fans as fans in the middle of Argentina fans. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life as a fan, and you know how much I love sports. We were fans that day. We're not there as media. We applied as normal fan, and we were there in Gelsenkirchen, and the game was about to start, and you can imagine it being raucous, the Argentina fans anyway. And all of a sudden, you know, when something happens in a stadium and everyone starts looking, and you think, is there a fight going on there or something? Everybody just stands up, all starts pointing. And right behind us, Maradona's in a box. And he comes out like this, like he's the Pope. And he's got his arms up and he's leaning over the box, and people are holding him back, and everyone's going crazy, just praising this godlike figure. And that's what he meant to the people of Argentina. And I only got a little glimpse of that day in that stadium. You know, subsequently, it was Messi's first goal ever in a World Cup, and they won 6-0. It was an amazing memory, but I'll never forget that moment that I shared to see what Maradona meant to those people that day. And he's one of those figures that is just as big as the sport itself. You know, it was a day a little bit that reminded me a little bit about when we lost Ayrton Senna. You know, and what Senna meant to the Brazilian people in that moment. And it thankfully we're living in an era now where there's access and people can watch those clips, like you said, with Hudson. And it's important that we continue to show what greatness truly is. What you said there about Maradona is like when Caldwell walks into the broadcast booth at BMO Field and he's signed all the autographs and all.
Acknowledges all 4 sides of BMO Field, tips his cap to the food building.
That's right.
We'll get to TFC again in a few moments just to close the show. But before we do that, the Powerade power play of the game, we were talking with Jonathan Osorio about Alphonso Davies, and obviously the Canadian talent that there is right now is as good as it has been for a long time. And this is somebody right now who is making an impact in the MLS Cup playoffs. Tejon Buchanan, we saw him just a couple of weeks ago playing for Montreal, against Montreal Impact for New England Revolution. As we roll the video here, we'll see, this is the game at the weekend when he wins the penalty that Carlos Hill scores from the spot. Great skill from Tejon Buchanan. I know you spoke to him a couple of weeks ago as well, but it's not just him. It's about Dane St. Clair in goal for Minnesota. It's about Alistair Johnston for Nashville. There was a couple of other Canadians as well who've been influential in these playoffs.
Kamal Miller played in the game.
Tejon, Bunbury, Kamal Miller was playing. Bunbury doesn't really count now, does he? But Tejon Buchanan, as either a right winger or now playing as a right wing back, it's had a wonderful season with New England Revolution and now making an impact for a team that is into the Eastern Conference final.
Yeah, he's flourishing, isn't he, Luke? His fitness is at the elite level now. He's really worked hard on that. He's boosting down that right wing, playing as a right wing back at some point in positions. I love that. And now he can receive the ball in a deep position and really come on into the pitch rather than waiting up. He's got quick feet. He's good with both feet. He goes towards the goal. He's aggressive and assertive. He's a team player, selfless guy, a wonderful guy to talk to as well. Just what you'd expect, I think, from that Brampton connection again, where produced so many players in this market. Just a really down-to-earth family guy. As I said, I told him that day, I saw him at the Combine. He was one of the, before he got drafted, a lot of people were looking at him then, and it's great he looked like a kid at the Combine. Now he plays and looks like a real man, a proper athlete. And for me, a player that European scouts will continue to look at because he's got a lot of everything. And it's exciting. Again, another Canadian prospect who's got a little bit of width to his game. We've got a lot of these right backs.
Yeah.
Figure out how to play them in different positions, maybe.
Disappointment for Forge the other night of the Canadian Premier League as they lost in penalties.
Crushing,
down in Dominican Republic. That's of significance for TFC. There is one more chance for Forge to get into the CONCACAF Champions League, more difficult opponent that they'll have to face next week in a playing game. TFC, the significance is that if Forge are to get into the CONCACAF Champions League by winning this game next week, it would mean then that TFC would almost certainly qualify for the Champions League next year without having to play the Canadian Championship final, which is going to take place next year.
Yeah.
There's a bit more of a rush to have that Canadian Championship final if Forge don't get through, and it still then has to decide who is going to be playing in the CONCACAF Champions League, whether that starts on time mid-February or is pushed back as well. So a lot of people will be on Forge's side, whether they're Forge fans next week or not. What a momentous moment it would be for the CPL and for Forge if they can make it through into the CONCACAF Champions League. But that was a huge missed opportunity the other night.
Yeah, shame for them. Obviously, a terrible goalkeeping mistake, and they dominated and bossed much of the match as well. So, I felt for them. I felt for David Edgar, a guy I know well, and I was exchanging messages this week, and he's obviously retiring at the end of this. He's got one more game to try and go out, but what a moment it would have been for him to go out on a high, and he scored in the shootout as well. So let's hope that Forge get the job done here. But as you said, it has ramifications on this process with TFC going forward.
Okay, we'll get through some questions between now and the end of the show in about 15 minutes' time. We've got some coming in online, some that you put the ask out for questions yesterday on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
And we'll preface this by who knows, really, because we don't know who the coach is going to be moving forward.
Right.
But Chrissy asked you on Twitter, of the remaining founding members of the TFC Golden Era, who will be the last one standing, Bradley, Altidore, or Morrow?
Wow. Last one standing. Whew. As a player, I think they would like to try and keep many of them within the organization. Last one standing as a player, I think they would maybe Altidore is youngest, and he's got a couple of years of contract left. I know Michael Bradley does as well.
Do you think Altidore's definitely going to be their first game next season?
Definitely is a strong word, mate. I don't know if I could go there. I think that they would certainly hope that he is, and he's motivated and fit and healthy to go. So. Yes, other than that, you can't say for sure, but I think that they need to figure out how to get him going again and get him on the field. And it's a big year for Josie. It's World Cup qualifying. There's a World Cup coming up, and he can still play a massive part in that. He is an instrumental part of what this team can do going forward, and for the United States if he can get him back to the form there. So I think I would probably say him at this point.
Christopher asked, do you see a future for Josie? We've mentioned Pablo, Eric, and Simon. So Pablo Piatti, they didn't pick up his option, but they are still in talks. And Ali Curtis the other day actually was quite positive about the talks that they've had with Pablo Piatti's agent. The potential there would be to bring him back on a non-designated player deal. Eric Zavaleta, Laurent Simon, two of the others that right now there are questions about whether they would come back.
Yeah, I haven't been privy to those conversations in terms of their demands financially. It obviously comes down to that. What I will say on both of those is that, again, back to the culture that you're trying to set, they are big personalities within the dressing room that a lot of people like, yet I've not played a lot of minutes. And you have to figure out, first of all, I think they need to get a centre-back anyway. So they might only make room for one of them if they want a fourth centre-back there. And again, it comes back to demands of money and fitting it in the cap. It looks unlikely that they'll be back based on what's happened this week. The other question was about Piatti. Here's where I stand on Piatti. Now, they don't pick up the option to go forward because, quite rightly, they need to create another spot to get a DP, and they have to get that spot right. The conversations that they're having, by all accounts, are positive, but my take on it would be, if I'm running the club, I can't re-sign Pablo Piatti until I know who I'm bringing in instead to replace him. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right. So you think about it like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Piatti's piece is quite...
He isn't coming back to be a sub for your DP that you're going to sign, or just playing 5-6 games a season.
Correct. And if you're looking to sign a player who can be lethal playing on the right wing and then can sometimes come in and play on the 9 and bring the pace and get the goals that you need, where does that leave with Piatti? So what my point being is, the next guy you're going to bring in is a big piece of the puzzle. Boom, right? Piatti's a smaller piece. You can't put that piece down before you put the bigger piece. You got to put the bigger piece in and build around the piece. So you might well be able to bring Piatti back, but I think if I'm orchestrating the construction of the club, I would be hesitant to commit the amount of dollars, even though they are away from the DP money, to give them to Pablo, despite all of the things he's done well. And I think I've read this week that it was a disappointing season for him. I don't think it was. I think it was a good season. It wasn't a great season. It was a good season. He did a lot of things well. But he has a good relationship with Pozuelo, which is
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, he made. For me, Pozuelo was better this season when Pablo Piatti was on the pitch.
Unquestionably. I 100% agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. You need more of those players at a high soccer/football, whatever your preference is, IQ level, to combine quickly and unbalance opposition's teams. You need more of them. And that's what Piatti brought. And then when he was fit and raring to go and really on that run of games where he played 9, 10, 11 games in a row at that stretch, he was like third or fourth in minutes with TFC after the pandemic for a long stretch. The team was far better than they were the prior year without him. He's a good trainer. He's a good person. He's a big personality. All those things tick the boxes. So there's a lot to like about bringing him back. But I just think that the club needs to make sure that they get the next piece right. And that does have a direct consequence for me on whether you bring him back.
A couple of people, one on Twitter, Johnny and Christopher as well in the chat here on the show, asking about Erickson Gallardo. Is it safe to assume the club will move on from Gallardo?
They haven't moved on from him because they couldn't, because he's still under contract. But it's safe to say that it was, a disaster. It's not been good. Let's be honest. He's not on a lot. He's not on a tremendous amount of money. Okay, he's a TAM player, but that doesn't matter. It was brought down, and it's so. But the level of trust factor between him and the last coaching staff was very low, and he wasn't being given many opportunities. And when he has been given those opportunities, he hasn't performed. That's just a fact. Can the next coaching staff come in and get more out of him? Potentially. He's a timid player. That's the only concern for me. He's a timid player. A team that lacked real pace and width, something he brought, still didn't trust him to bring those things. And they know him a lot better than me working day to day. So it'll be interesting to see. But whether they bring him back or not, I think it'll be. I'll be surprised.
Back on the manager search, Gray asks, I wonder if Robin Fraser would have been considered to replace Greg Vanney had he not left. Robin Fraser, of course, doing well in Colorado now, was Greg Vanney's assistant. And Greg mentioned him the other day in the media as still being part of what he described the inner circle. Also, the opportunity maybe to wait for Vermees or Schmetzer could take a while as they're in the playoffs still. Are they a real consideration? Listen, if Robin Fraser was still in Toronto as Greg Vanney's assistant and wasn't going to go with him wherever he's going, which I wouldn't have assumed he would because he was desperate for a job, which is why he left to go to Colorado. Absolutely, I think he would have been in the conversation for the job. Yeah. Whether he is now, you've got to doubt because he's got his feet under the desk in Colorado. He's building something there. Although having said that, this is Toronto. In terms of the franchise and what they can achieve, the money that they will spend, it's a bigger club to be at than a Colorado Rapids. As for a Vermees or Schmetzer, both of them have been on this show recently. Brian Schmetzer's not leaving Seattle, is he? Even though he's out of contract, that would floor me if he wasn't still there next year. I know anything can happen, and I really don't think Peter Vermees is leaving Kansas City either. I mean, we talked to him a few weeks ago about what that club means to him and how he's built everything down there. It's unlikely that TFC priced someone away from another MLS team, isn't it?
I think it is unlikely. I think it's okay for fans like Gray and others who are so passionate about this club to be joining us today on a Thursday after the season is out to dream. That's what it's about. Guys, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. You haven't been able to go watch your team play for months. The sport is empty if you don't belong to somebody. You belong to this club. And you have a right to feel like that you can dream and get those moments. And if this was European soccer, if this was the Premier League, those conversations are happening all of the time. Now, we can have a discussion about the hierarchy and where we think Toronto FC is. Somebody who is going for this job messaged me this week and said it is the best job in MLS. Now, they think that it's the best job in MLS.
Who is that, KJ?
Does Peter Vermees think it's does Peter Vermees think it's the best job in MLS? Does Brian Smetzer think it's the best job? I don't know. Brian Smetzer is Mr. Seattle, right? He loves that city. What on earth, as you said, would he leave for? Why would he leave? Now, why is he not got a contract? That's the other question. For me, those two are the gold standard. They are your gold ticket in your chocolate bar that you might only have 5 in the world. Okay, let's forget about it. No dreaming about Mauricio Pochettino and all these nonsense dream jobs. They are the version of Pochettino in MLS, right? Peter Vermees is an absolute legend, a magnificent leader, a culture setter who has done everything he can possibly do in sports in Kansas City. And I, like you, think it would be very difficult to pry him away from that. However, if you're a TFC fan and you love this city and you think TFC are bigger and you can get bigger players, and Kansas City for the first time ever have just got one big player in Pulido, and it is a smaller market, why can't you believe and dream that you could do that? Why not? I would suggest that would be an incredible hire. And just like Smetzer, but for me, domestically, those are the two. The others, if you've coached in Orlando and didn't work out, or you've coached in New York and it didn't work out, for me, that MLS experience stuff, it's very different. TFC, Toronto, MLSE, you need a presence. You need to understand the city, the culture, what that badge means, what those players mean, what this club means. And for me, I think that is very important when you look to make the hire of who it is ticking the box.
People want names, by the way, you can't just hang it out there. Oh, someone called me this week who wants the job. Oh, I'm not going to tell you who it is. That's
This is not about me, guys.
I did see someone from MLSsoccer.com ranking the open jobs available right now. And I think it was Toronto first, Atlanta second, LA Galaxy third, DC fourth. Right. Reports today that Chris Armas, ex of the Red Bulls, is now front of the line in terms of the DC United job.
Okay.
TFC in Atlanta, would you agree TFC is first in terms of the attraction there? Or, I mean, it's pretty close, isn't it, between these two teams?
You're asking me to pick between two of the most wonderful cities in the world, mate. You know what I think about Atlanta.
I know that's the only.
If you're coaching Atlanta, you can go to Roaster's restaurant every week.
That's true.
You can't do that if you're TFC, so that's a big problem. You can go watch Braves games, which I'd love. Now, for me, I think the person who ranked it, I'm not sure who it was, but I think the issue with Atlanta right now is that the roster construction is harder. I'm not saying that it's easy with TFC, but where they are in the position of moving forward and getting closer, I think that this group is not approaching the end, but is further along in the line. It's a bigger job because of the transition you need to make. You've got players on the wrong side of the careers, and you need to integrate them. That's important because they set the standard. With Atlanta, it is a franchise that has got to go through another bit of a rebuild first. It's a wonderful market. What a job it is for somebody. But I think that's probably why somebody put Toronto better. And if you have to pin me to the wall, Toronto, yes, is a better city.
One of the other things as well that people might not think about, but actually
Will Dunn asked, was it Caldwell calling KJ? No, I haven't heard from him for days. I don't know where he is.
You don't know where he is.
Wasn't Caldwell, no. I can tell you that.
If anyone sees him, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Where's Caldwell? Where's our Wally?
What was I going to say? I can't remember. No, the other point that was made was that as well, it's much more difficult for Atlanta United to become a regular every year CONCACAF Champions League team than it is for TFC, for example, to get in by winning the Canadian Championship. I know the Canadian Championship is starting to expand, but there's a lot more of a strenuous route to get to either win MLS Cup or through US Open Cup or however it is that they can get into the CONCACAF Champions League as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, it's a very different, in terms of ambition and Eastern Conference rivalries, there's a lot of similarities, but they're very different markets, very different ways to set themselves up. I think I was on another chat about somebody within MLS about this this week. Atlanta's a South American flavor right now, right? That's the route they've gone down and it's worked for them. TFC have almost been the opposite. I don't necessarily think that to a detriment, but I do think they need to find a little bit of that. There's gems in the world in South America that you can sign and get real quality and technicians on the ball for players that these guys, none of us know, that you can go out there and scout better in those areas. And Atlanta's made that a real pillar of their success. I don't think TFC will make it a pillar. I just think it's, Toronto as a city is a bit more Anglified than Atlanta, and a little bit they've gone along with that direction. So, but it'll be interesting to see. I just saw Jeffrey's message; it made me smile.
The one about Neil Warnock. Yeah. No, yeah. Anyway,
Luke's worked with Neil Warnock. We can tell you 45 minutes of stories with it.
I'm lost for words.
Did Neil Warnock call you this week, Luke, and ask if he could get his name out there?
Last I saw, he was at Middlesbrough, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Still winding people up, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I heard that Caldwell wasn't going to be turning up, I wondered what we were going to talk about for an hour. But Oso was fantastic. He always is
great.
Just not just the love for TFC and what he's done for the club, but you always appreciate talking to someone who loves the game as well, KJ. He just loves the game. He loves playing it, being involved in it, watching it. Great story about Diego Maradona as well. So thanks to Jonathan Osorio for coming on. Absolutely a great chat. Yeah,
he's a wonderful ambassador, not only for the city, but for the club itself. And guys like that, you got to keep around for a long time. There's, I think, as I shared with him a little bit here, I think he's an enormous part, a massive part of what's to come for the next leader of this team. He shared with us what Greg Vanney shared with him when he first came in as a young 21-year-old player. Now that next coach comes in, that's one of the first calls right there. That guy's one of your first calls. He's already captained the club this year. He's a future captain of the club for me. A pillar of consistency, an understanding, and a tactical brain, outstanding individual fitness, reads the game really well, a good person who loves the sport. And finally, I'll say this, what I loved about what he said, we asked about, or it was me or you, and you asked about who the next coach would be and whether you guys are finding out what it's going to be. And, he said something that I think is really important that everybody has to remember. And that's these players are wired so differently that they have to think about themselves, and they're not going to waste energy. If we think these players are calling up Ali Curtis every 10 minutes, going, who's coming in, who's going to be our coach? It's just not going to happen.
That's just you. That's just you calling Ali one a tip.
But what my point being is, in other organizations, when a big boss leaves, we be calling, who's going to come in? Who? Not these guys. They have to be solely focused on their own individual work plan. And then when that job comes up, that's why they get where they are, the individual brilliance of where they are. They have to focus on themselves. Yes, if someone calls them, and I think Ali or Bill would obviously call some people and say, what about this player or this? And do this guy who played here or things like that? That's going to come up when they're asked, but they're not going to waste time getting involved in that, because I think it again shows just how they're wired and how they get to where they are. And for me, I have nothing but utmost respect for those players.
2 more episodes of Footy Talks live to go this year. We'll be back next week as we look towards MLS Cup, and then we'll be back following MLS Cup next 2 Thursdays to wrap everything up as well.
I'm going to try and find Stevie I don't know where he is, but maybe he'll be back.
I'm expecting it just to be me and you again the next 2 weeks. Maybe he's gone back to Scotland and just hasn't told anybody. I don't know.
It's a little bit like that time, mate, we got on that plane to go to Vancouver, and there's that one empty seat. There's that one empty seat, and you're messaging me, and you're like, have you seen him? I'm like, no. Have you seen him?
Did you see him get on?
No, he's not on, is he? And then here we go. We land, and it's like ding, ding, ding. So we'll wait to see whether we've landed, and he'll ding away.
Thanks, everyone, for being with us today. I really enjoyed the interaction.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the week. MLS Cup playoffs continuing, of course, every game on TSN. We'll chat with you again. Footy Talks Live next week at 12:30. Hi, everyone. Hey, everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Footy Talks. Footy Talks. Footy Talks. Presented by Powerade. We are live with your Thursday Footy Fix.